What is up, everybody? It is Drew, Traveler of the Burning Abyss, here with another deck profile. And today, we're going to be taking a look at the normal summon Alistair deck. This is about as basic as it gets. This is how you play Yu-Gi-Oh! Without having to think, and it's one of the reasons that I like posting profiles for this, for people who want to play the game on a more competitive level, but they don't want to put an excessive amount of thinking into combo lines and combo pieces. Instead, you play something like normal summon Alistair and just, do pretty well. But we're going to go ahead and hop right onto the deck profile. Before we do, you guys already know the drill, though. If you are not subscribed already, make sure you go ahead and smash that subscribe button, turn the notification bell on so you know when I upload more cool and awesome content just like the video you are currently watching. And, obviously give it a thumbs up. That's always helpful too. But let's go ahead and jump right on into this week's deck profile. All right, so we're going to start with the main deck per usual, and we'll start, I'll start by mentioning that I'm doing a different layout for the way I'm going to format this deck profile. I'm going to do it like by engine, because I just think it's a little easier to go through each engine in the deck for this particular list. If you guys like this kind of formatting, please let me know. That would be really helpful. But we'll start with the Invoked package, which is 3 copies of Alistair the Invoker, 3 copies of Magical Meltdown, 1 copy of Terraforming, and 2 copies of Invocation. So, playing all of this is fairly standard. None of this is really out of the ordinary. Your Alistairs search your Invocation, your Meltdown searches your Alistair, your Terraforming also searches your Meltdown. That's obviously really cool and really important. The other thing that's really important is the fact that Meltdown has the ability where when you summon a fusion monster, when you fusion summon it, that your opponent can't activate effects to the summon of it. So if you summon something like Agides and you're trying to get rid of one of your opponent's cards, they actually can't chain to the Agides because of Meltdown being active. So that's actually really important, really cool. Just keep that in mind. That's something that I really talk about. But the Invocation and Alistair recycling ability is amazing. It's just absolutely fantastic. So having the ability to have access to just a continual loop over and over again is honestly so awesome. But I think that this deck can get really slowed down by hand traps. Your opponent Ashes or Veilers your Alistair. Unless you have the Invocation in hand already, then you just kind of suffer depending on what other engines you've drawn into, if any. So keep that in mind. But moving on to the Dogmatika portion, we have 3 copies of Ecclesia, 1 Fleur-de-Lis, 1 Maximus, 2 Nadir Servant, 1 Punishment, and I consider this an honorary Dogmatika card, Shadal Schism. It's the only Shadal card that we play, but really you're just getting it off of the Dogmatika engine, so you kind of just have to include this as part of the engine, because it really is. It's actually just an honorary Dogmatika card. So your Ecclesias are going to give you the ability to search for your Fleur-de-Lis, your Maximus, or your Punishment, and your Nadir Servant is going to get you to one of these Dogmatika cards. So it's just kind of a nice search and another nice engine. You have a lot of starters in this deck, so opening any one card can really get your engine going, which is fantastic. And then the Schism is obviously a floodgate in a way, which is pretty darn cool. Last engine of the deck, we play, of course, the DPE engine here, the 2 Destiny, the Celestial, and the Dasher. I don't think I have to really explain these. Everybody really just knows how good this is right now. A lot of decks are playing it and should be playing it. So definitely continue playing this engine if you are already. It's just overall very strong. That's the real core engines of the deck. We do have 1 card that is more of a searcher, and that is 3 copies of Pot of Prosperity. This card helps you dig and find whatever missing piece you need for your opening combo and just your opening string of plays. So playing something like Prosperity is very useful, and you don't need your entire extra deck. There are a lot of cards that you can get rid of, especially going into game 2 or 3. If you know you're going second, you just side out the Schism, and then you can use the Prosperity to get rid of all the Shadal cards in the extra deck, which just gives you free targets for Prosperity. So keep that in mind. Lastly, what I'm going to show you guys is all of the going second cards that we play. We actually play 15 going second cards. We have the same amount of going second cards as we do starter cards. So in theory, we should be able to draw into probably a couple of each of them and hopefully just be able to run our combo through. So we'll start with the hand traps. We have 3 Nib, 3 Ash, 3 Veiler, and 3 Imperm. So I think that these are some of the most high impact hand traps as far as not knowing what your opponent is playing. They're just generically good. I think that the Imperm is actually fantastic as a whole. Same with the Nibiru. I think that these cards are very powerful and, to be perfectly fair, somewhat necessary. This is a format where one hand trap is really not going to cut it. You're going to have to draw multiple, or you're going to have to draw a way to completely shut off your opponent's board. So playing things like this is, in my eyes, fully necessary and stops a lot of matchups. And the main deck Nibiru, I think, is going to be more and more common as time progresses. So keep that in mind. Then lastly, the last card that we play for going second is 3 copies of Forbidden Droplet. I don't think I should really have to explain this too much. It shuts off your Scythe Lock, your DP stuff, all that shenanigans can be stopped by this card. So if you're not playing the droplets, make sure you play the droplets if you have them. If you don't have them, you have to play something else because you're playing on a budget. Just play like Forbidden Chalice. That's like your second best option. So, but yeah, droplet is phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. That, however, is the entirety of the main deck. It's 40 cards exact, which is ideal. You want to be able to see your combo pieces as quickly as possible. And this engine obviously gives you the ability to do so because you're playing so many starter cards that you're just going to be able to do something that's going to get your deck going. And that's one of the things I love about it, is that this deck is just consistent. It's consistent all the time. It's one of those decks that you're always going to see somehow squeeze into top cut. It's just the way that it is, but that's what I love about it so much. But that is the main deck. Let's go ahead and hop on over to the extra deck and check it all out. All right, so extra deck time. We're going to go ahead and go over all the lovely and fun things that are basically pretty standard in this deck. That's essentially what I'm going to be showing. And we're going to start with our Invoked Fusions, which are 2 Mechaba, 1 Ragin, 1 Purgatrio, and 1 Augides. I will explain the Ragin based on a side deck card that I'm playing, but I don't want to reveal the side deck card yet. So when I get to the side deck, then I'll discuss the Ragin. For now, we won't discuss it because there's not a point in discussing it currently. But the Mechaba is your negation, which is fantastic. This card's really, really good. The Purgatrio just helps you clear boards out. Sometimes you can OTK with it too, which is really cool. The Augides is just an amazing card. Like, this card is so good. Honestly, I was contemplating cutting the Ragin and playing Starving Venom and then main decking 3 Super Polys, but I'm on the fence about it because I'm like, how many matchups am I actually going to get where I need to use, you know, a Super Poly? But I'm not sure. I'm very undecided on that so far, but it definitely could come up. And the Augides is really good with the Super Poly because you normal summon Alistair and you use the effect, and they try and like DPE to pop their Scythe, and then you just chain Super Poly, which is really cool. So that's actually a really good play. So it gives you the ability to just get rid of stuff, and their DP won't recur, which is actually pretty cool. So that's kind of the Invoke stuff that I felt needed to be talked about. Then I know I mentioned the Shadal engine already, which we're playing the Winda, the App Cologne, and the Construct. This is just for your Schism. Basically, you're going to end up sending the App Cologne most likely and searching for your Shadal Schism, and then your Maximus will send Construct and Titaniclad or any other card that you have to send to then trigger the Construct's effect to add the Schism back from your grave to your hand after you've discarded it off of App Cologne, and that sets you up perfectly for your Winda lock. So that's actually a very important play, and it wins you a lot of games. That Winda lock is almost as good, if not better, than the Scythe lock, so keep that in mind. Then we have some stuff to send off of our Dogmatika cards. So we have the 1 copy of Entis, the 1 copy of Titaniclad, and the 1 copy of Omega. These cards can come up pretty frequently. The Omega comes up the least frequently, but when it does come up and you start recycling stuff, this card is the absolute stones. Like, this card is amazing. Just recycling things is great, and there are times where you can send it and you can like shuffle your opponent's cards back to like a DP, which is actually busted, like really busted. So keep that in mind. This card's fantastic, absolutely fantastic. The Titanic Lad, really good to search during end phase or special during end phase, depending on what you opened. And then the Entis is also just really good because it's another pop. Like, you can Dogmatika Punishment, send this, and you pop one of their cards at 2,500 or less, and then this effect triggers and you pop another one of their cards. Like, that's actually super, super strong. Then we have some Link monsters here. We've got our Almirage and our Secure Gardna for the standard opening combo where you just link Alistair for the Almirage and Almirage for the Secure Gardna, and then you get a Mechaba. That's about as simple as it gets. And then lastly, we have the Verte and the DPE, which we all knew was going to be here because of me showing you the main deck. This engine is really, really busted, and considering I just saw today what the OCG's ban list looks like, I don't think that for the future you should be picking this engine up in the TCG. If you already have it, keep playing it, but if you don't have it, just avoid it for now, because there's a good chance that something else on it is going to get hit. And once we get the branded structure deck stuff, I think that that'll be the real time for the Verte to get smacked around on that ban list. But that is the extra deck. We're going to go ahead and hop on to the side deck and talk about how we, side versus the rest of the meta. All right, so it is now side deck time, and I want to point out that you are currently seeing probably my most side decked card in the entirety of me playing this game within the last, I don't know, probably like 3 years, if not more. This card has been in a very large amount of my side decks, and that is the 3 copies of Artifact Lancia. I think most people already know how good this card is, and they really just get the idea that playing a card like this gives you such an advantage, being able to stop your opponent from banishing for an entire turn. That is ridiculous against most of the meta, and has been the case for a very long time. So side deck the 3 Lancia, it's fully worth it. And to go alongside that, we are side decking 3 Droll, because there is a lot of searching as well in this format, and if you can cut your opponent off from continually searching, that is obviously extremely, extremely optimal. So stop your opponent from banishing, stop them from searching. That's about as good as it gets. I don't think we could get any better than that. Then we have some removal here. We have 3 copies of Cosmic Cyclone and 3 copies of Evenly Matched. So I think that these are pretty necessary. The Cosmic is fantastic against Scythe because you can banish the Scythe from the spell and trap zone, and then it's gone. Like, it's just gone, and then your opponent doesn't get to summon it because it doesn't hit the graveyard, which is really good. Cyclone is also good against Eldritch, as well as Evenly being good against Eldritch. They're both fantastic cards, very, very powerful. So keep in mind that playing both of them helps you against a lot of matchups. And the cool thing is too, is that if you Evenly against like Phantom Knights, their board is basically going to end up being a DP Engrave, and they're going to banish down to 1 card, and then they're going to get a Scythe out. But you wipe the rest of their board. Their Fog Blades are gone. Like, everything else is gone. So, like, you just kind of get to slow them down a little bit, because they don't put up spell and trap negates, even though you are going to be Scythe locked, which can be kind of detrimental. If you open up like a Nadir Servant, it's actually not that bad. If you can Evenly them and then Nadir Servant, you pretty much can steal the game, because you can Maximus send Omega, and then the Omega can shuffle their DPE back, and you just basically cleared their DPE loop, which is very, very good. So keep that in mind. Then lastly, the Floodgate that we play for when we know we're going first. 3 copies of Tikaboo, because we know that in this meta, there's a lot of cards of the same exact monster type, and we want to stop our opponents from utilizing that, because our deck doesn't really worry that much about having the same monster type. We can play fully well without playing the same monster types out, which is amazing, like really, really amazing. So playing something like 3 Tikaboo is fantastic. fantastic. And if you know you're going first, it's additional Floodgate on top of something like Shadal Schism. So yeah, so that's pretty darn good. And you could always just side out like 3 copies of a Hand Trap, or you could side out the 3 copies of Droplet, and you could play the 3 Tikaboo. So that's actually really cool. Really strong card and fantastic Floodgate for this deck to be utilizing. That, however, does bring the deck profile itself to a close. So, I mean, I love playing this deck. For most people who know my channel and know me, I've had a pretty good amount of success with this deck. I won a Nintendo Switch with it too, which was actually pretty cool. Every time I play this deck, I feel like I'm doing at least half decent. So, because it's really not that difficult. But oh, I forgot to talk about one thing, and I should have talked about this before. The Droll and Lockbird. I didn't discuss this, and I apologize. I'm glad I just riffled through my extra deck. So the Rage-In is strictly in the extra deck for the Droll and Lockbird. This is a very, very strong thing to have, because like you're gonna droll your opponent, and then if you have like no reason to summon out a Mechaba, you can just make like a Rage-In, and then you have like a Walking Book of Moon, which is fantastic. It's also got a big booty, like it's a 2400 booty, so you could throw it in defense and then have, you know, a little bit of a defense wall up. But typically speaking, it's going to be the Book of Moon, which is going to help get you there. Against something like Sword Soul, it can be pretty good because they summon out like one of their 10E monsters and you can book it, or they summon out, you know, something that they're going to try and use for whether it's a link material or a synchro, and you can set it. Just keep in mind, you can't Book of Moon like tokens, like that doesn't work, but everything else you can hit. So Rage-In is actually pretty powerful in that respect, so keep that in mind. But that is now the conclusion of the deck profile. I hope everybody enjoyed it. If you did, don't forget to give the video a thumbs up. Don't forget to smash that subscribe button, and obviously hit the notification bell like I already mentioned earlier in the video. But for right now, this is Drew, Traveler of the Burning Abyss, signing out.